The boy's name was Nigel Slater. Born into a well-off middle-class family in England, his father was a factory director and his mother a housewife. Life should have been carefree, yet Nigel often felt hungry, not from pickiness, but because his mother suffered from severe asthma and couldn't touch oil or grease. For over 10 years, meals were dry toast or bland steamed canned meat. Occasionally, she tried baking, but the results were disasters, cakes turning out like lumps of coal. Sometimes the canned meat was burnt, leaving only toast again. This fed Nigel's fierce longing for real food. He stayed up late studying recipes and imagined himself running a restaurant on the lawn. To his father, such behavior seemed odd, even troubling. One day, a neighbor's brother gave Nigel a freshly pulled carrot. Its sweet flavor stunned him, and he resolved to cook for himself. To everyone's surprise, his first dish, spaghetti with beef sauce, was delicious. Even his stern father ate eagerly, until suddenly his face twisted in disgust and his mother suffered an asthma attack. Though she recovered, something shifted in the family. His father, usually reclusive, proposed a seaside trip for her health. On the beach, they ate canned meat again. Nigel, irritated by the jelly layer, scraped it off. His father exploded in anger, and Nigel stormed away. Looking back, he saw his mother gasping in another attack. Though still a child, he sensed something was wrong. That night, at a dance, he asked her to teach him to make meat pies for Christmas, hoping the holiday's miracles might help. But her health worsened. Soon she lay bedridden, dependent on a respirator. Nigel, heartbroken, began to understand death. That night, his father finally spoke openly. Nigel's cooking was never bad. He only pretended to dislike good food so his wife wouldn't feel guilty. Nigel worried, but his father reassured him before walking away. Just as Nigel drowned in sorrow, he suddenly heard his mother call him. She wanted to fulfill her promise, to teach him how to make a meat pie. It was one of the rare warm moments between them. They quickly rolled out the pastry, only the filling was missing. But no matter how they searched, there was no meat. They would have to wait until the next day. Hearing this, Nigel grew upset. He never got to taste his mother's pie. That night, his father unexpectedly brought home a Christmas present, saying it was from her. Nigel wanted to refuse. It was still a month until Christmas, but his father's stern face frightened him. He feared both losing his mother and angering his father. So he began wishing tomorrow would be Christmas, hoping for a miracle. But the next morning, when he eagerly unwrapped the gift, he saw his father sobbing. At once, Nigel understood. His mother had left them forever. Separation often comes suddenly, like a cold wind scattering life's most precious petals, leaving emptiness and regret. Yet life, like a river, never stops flowing. In the days that followed, his father began cooking, but the meals were dreadful. He couldn't even manage canned meat. After an afternoon in the kitchen, he served only a mush of beans. Nigel tasted one bite and spat it out. That small action ignited all his father's pent-up grief. They erupted into a fierce argument. Furious, Nigel stormed out and confided in his best friend. He didn't understand his father's harshness, but his friend advised him, learn how to please him. After all, there's no such thing as a free lunch, and to win a man's heart, you must first win his stomach. The words awakened something in Nigel. He used all his savings to buy 2 fresh fillets of cod, once his father's favorite. The shopkeeper, touched by his earnestness, even shared cooking tips. Back home, Nigel brushed the fish with butter and slid it into the oven. 10 minutes later, the kitchen filled with a rich aroma. But his father hadn't returned from work. Nigel kept reheating the dish, and by the time his father came home, the golden fish had turned to charcoal. Looking at the blackened cod, his father suddenly felt his son had grown. Despite the awful taste, he ate it all. After all, he liked burnt food. For the first time, Nigel sensed the tenderness hidden beneath his stern exterior. He thought life might finally settle into peace, but an unexpected change shattered his fragile calm. One afternoon, coming home from school, Nigel discovered a heavily made-up woman in the house. She was the new housekeeper his father had hired. Nigel immediately disliked her. Who wore black stockings and a mini-skirt to scrub floors? Worse was the way she used flirtatious gestures to catch his father's attention, and his father seemed to enjoy it. Over time, the air between them grew increasingly ambiguous. Nigel was bewildered. Compared to his elegant mother, this housekeeper was nothing more than a puddle of mud. At last, he confronted her, warning she must never dream of replacing his mother or pursuing his father. Yet even as he spoke, his actions betrayed him. Her apple pie was irresistible. With one bite, he was conquered. His father's reaction needed no words. Since the housekeeper's arrival, he laughed more, cared about his appearance, and even drove her to company banquets. Nigel thought a housekeeper should stay home, but his father saw it differently. She was, he said, straightforward, sincere, and worthy of respect. Soon after, they saw her climbing the fence to sneak out. Even so, his father's affection remained. They even danced passionately together, like lovers lost in happiness. The sight unsettled Nigel. He couldn't understand his father's fascination. His father tried to explain, but Nigel was speechless. Late at night, he pulled out one of his mother's old dresses and danced softly, as if feeling her presence again. What he didn't know was that his father, and his closeness with the housekeeper was partly to soothe his loneliness, and partly to start anew. Not long after, his father bought a country house and moved there. The housekeeper soon divorced her husband and followed. Nigel couldn't accept it, but under her threats and coaxing, they reached a fragile truce. From then on, she officially became part of the family. Compared with his late mother's elegance, Nigel had to admit she was a far more practical wife. She kept the house neat and varied the meals daily, reviving their taste buds after years of misery. As time passed, Nigel grew from a restless boy into a handsome teenager. When he entered high school, he chose the cooking class, usually reserved for girls. His classmates mocked him, but Nigel paid no mind. Father is enchanted with her because she cooks so well, he thought. If I can make food just as delicious, will I win back his affection? So he buried himself in the school kitchen, diligently studying recipes. He had true talent. Every time he baked, classmates devoured everything, giving him confidence. That evening, he brought home scones he'd made himself. His father praised them warmly. Standing nearby, the housekeeper felt a flicker of danger. Thus began a silent battle for his father's palate. Every Wednesday, when Nigel had cooking class, the housekeeper stuffed his father with food so he'd be too full to try Nigel's treats. At first Nigel didn't care. He believed his skills would soon surpass hers. But one day, when he proudly brought home a pastry, he discovered his father had already eaten it and declared it the best lemon meringue pie he had ever tasted. Nigel was skeptical. Curious, he tried a slice. To his shock, it was indeed extraordinary, the finest lemon pie he had ever eaten. The housekeeper looked smug. "Give up, you're nowhere near my level." Her taunt ignited Nigel's competitive spirit. He devoured cookbooks and experimented endlessly, yet never achieved her airy texture. Desperate, he resorted to spying. Watching secretly, he learned every detail mattered: the lemon juice, the egg whites, the thinness of the pastry. After weeks of relentless practice, he finally succeeded in making a pie identical to hers. Excited, he presented it to his father, forgetting they'd just finished tea. His father refused another bite. Disappointed, Nigel returned to the kitchen, only to find the housekeeper waiting. She tasted the pie and instantly recognized her own recipe. Nigel denied it. Furious, she snapped, "I cook, I clean, I do everything for you, and this is how you repay me. Fine, this time you clean up yourself." Witnessing the quarrel, his father concluded Nigel was rude and ungrateful. Sternly, he warned his son not to cause trouble again and announced he had officially proposed. Soon she would become his wife. Not long after, the housekeeper got her wish. She became the new wife, and the stepmother Nigel despised most. At the wedding, she proudly displayed her dishes, declaring that father and son were lucky to have her. His father was in high spirits, even praising Nigel's pastry in front of the guests. That gave Nigel a small, bitter comfort. When the guests were gone, Nigel sat alone on the doorstep, while upstairs his father and stepmother laughed together. He realized this warm home no longer belonged to him. He considered finding a weekend job, but when his stepmother discovered it, she made a scene, insisting his actions were malicious, that he only sought another way to win back his father. Their battle reignited. Every day, both strove to outdo each other with dishes and desserts, while his father, trapped in this war of sugar and fat, grew heavier and heavier until he could no longer endure it. He had long sensed the truth: this home had become a battlefield. Despite his efforts to maintain balance, even as he struggled to fasten his shirt buttons, the outcome was far from what he hoped. When Nigel saw his father in tears for the first time, he suddenly awakened. His cooking had only brought pain. He sincerely apologized and retreated to the kitchen. There, he found his stepmother gazing sadly at photos of her own daughters. And just like that, their confrontation ended. Yet through the struggle, Nigel discovered a true passion for cooking. Determined, he left school and began work at a town restaurant. There he met Julian, the owner's son, a young man devoted to ballet. Every movement carried grace, even when cooking, and his unique style fascinated Nigel. Observing quietly, Nigel grew close to him. Curious, he asked why Julian seemed so skilled. Julian only laughed, saying he wasn't truly talented, just playing. Seeing Nigel's confusion, Julian explained, the essence of cooking is not technique but respect for ingredients and the recreation of memory. However successful one may be, the dish most longed for in quiet moments is usually from home. What makes home food precious is the love it carries. Julian's words enlightened Nigel. He remembered his mother's simple toast, or the cod burnt black in the oven. Though imperfect, they overflowed with warmth. With this realization, he decided to return home and prepare a meal to express his feelings to his father. But what awaited him was devastating. His stepmother, trembling in the kitchen, revealed that only days earlier his father had suddenly passed away while working in the garden. The revelation left Nigel reeling. Overcome with grief, he placed all the blame on her. Later, he returned to his room, put on his late mother's favorite music, and sat as memories surged like a tide. In a daze, he was transported to childhood, dancing with his mother, cans of meat bubbling, golden toast springing from the toaster. More than ever, he longed to taste those flavors again, flavors of love and warmth. But they slipped away like sand through his fingers. The harder he tried to hold on, the faster they vanished. Until at last, they were gone completely. Resolute, Nigel packed his bags, preparing to leave the house brimming with memories and sorrow. His stepmother followed with a carefully prepared meal, but he only left her with a cold thank you before walking away for good. She stood alone, watching him depart. Nigel took a train to London in search of work. The restaurant owner he met, who later inspired the character in this very film, offered him his first chance, a simple bite of toast. From that moment, Nigel grew into a master chef and writer, recounting the story of a boy's coming of age and redemption through food. The film is adapted from Nigel Slater's autobiographical book Toast. In truth, after leaving, he never returned to that house. Only in old age did he recognize the decisiveness and prejudice of youth. He regretted deliberately tarnishing his stepmother's image in his autobiography. Thankfully, he did make a public apology, albeit late. But isn't that youth? We throw ourselves into battles and rivalries, desperate for recognition, forgetting the simplest and most sincere feelings. Nigel finally understood that what his father needed was not a flawless lemon meringue pie but the understanding and love of his family. In that realization, he saw that what is lost can never be recovered, and that those who remain must be cherished in the present. Thus, he left behind the house of memories and pain, bidding farewell to his own competitive, prideful self. The restaurant in London became his new beginning, the place where he rediscovered himself. He no longer cooked to please others, but to convey love and warmth, to use food as balm for the human heart. As he later wrote in his autobiography, what lingers in memory is not expensive French meals, but the simple dishes one can still savor at a street stall at 60. Like the toast he ate as a boy, it may seem ordinary, but to make it perfectly crisp and golden requires care and attention to timing. Within it lies boundless love and sacrifice from a mother. No matter how hard life becomes, one cannot forget the person who toasted bread for them. Just one bite of the crisp crust, the soft center, and the warmth of salted butter, and you are forever enchanted. The value of a film lies in its reputation, but the value of a film review lies in its feeling.